Hello everyone, this is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. I know at the end of last week I promised you a very different program today. However, a few nights ago I had another experience which I think you'll find more interesting, so I'm going to have to get to that other topic in the future. I'm going to call this experience Imprisoned by an Angel. I was chilling in my dream cabana somewhere by a beautiful beach under an azure sky. Suddenly, a hotel maid started vacuuming the beach. Now, at the time, I thought this was a little odd, but they had to keep the sand clean somehow, I thought. Dream logic. As she neared my beach chair with her machine, it began to grow so large that I felt myself being sucked toward it. I exerted my full strength of will to fight the force drawing me in, but it was of no use. Blackness closed in. An instant later, I found myself standing by my bed, my physical body sprawled on its side under the covers. Before me was a familiar pillar of light with barely recognizable human features. "Dude," I exclaimed, "seriously?" The angel from my former experience of being drafted to aid in the freeing of trapped earthbound spirits from a funeral home just stood there impassively, saying nothing. "Hello, McFly. Anybody home?" This quote from Back to the Future suddenly came to me as my anger rose. The pillar of light in my room got a bit brighter. Touched a nerve there, I thought with silent satisfaction. "Look, this is just getting ridiculous. I demand to speak to your manager. This has got to stop," I shouted. He just stood there, thoroughly unimpressed by my anger and demands. I mused silently, do angels even have managers? I felt my anger slowly subsiding. And then I shamefully threw all you guys under the bus. I have this YouTube channel called Astral Club. It has a few thousand members so far, and I'm sure some of them would be glad to help you out. I can get you their YouTube names. You guys can trace those, right? I saw no visible reaction to my offer. A heavy weight collected around my shoulders as I realized there was no weaseling out of this. "Fine," I said. "Anytime you're ready to go, let's get this over with." In a whirlwind, I was swept up with my angelic guardian into the night sky. We reappeared high above a city with a complex that looked like the spokes of a wheel below us. From thousands of feet up in the darkness of night, many cities look alike. But the menace radiating from the group of buildings below I'd felt before. In fact, it was unmistakable. Below us was the crumbling facade of what had once been a hell on earth. Eastern State Penitentiary. Eastern State Penitentiary had been opened in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1829. For its time, it was considered a revolutionary concept in dealing with criminality. Rather than just a place of punishment, it was designed with a monastic ideal in mind. The prisoners, or penitents, would be housed in separate, tiny cells with absolute quiet and minimal interaction with fellow prisoners and guards. It was thought that given time to reflect upon their sins, those imprisoned here would repent of their evil ways and eventually become rehabilitated members of society. The concrete cells each had a single glass skylight representing the eye of God, suggesting the ever-watchful eye of the Almighty was always monitoring them. The prison was the first of its kind anywhere, and tourists from the United States, Europe, and around the world poured into the city of brotherly love to see this new, modern, and enlightened place of correction. Notorious prisoners like the bank robber Willie Sutton and Al Capone were once housed here. However, like many theories, this one fell far short in practice. The prison finally closed in 1971 and is today a museum. Tours are given to visitors where you can see for yourself the crumbling walls and the claustrophobic cells that once held desperate, suffering men. Around Halloween, nighttime tours are held with stories of tortured spirits still held within, frightening guests who come here for a cheap thrill. Many report, including myself, being touched by invisible hands while walking through the monastery-like halls of this grim facility. We landed in front of the prison, which always reminded me of a foreboding medieval castle. "Yeah, I'm not going in there," I said firmly. "That place is scary enough in the daytime in the physical, but at night in the astral, not happening." "Follow," said my angelic overseer, "and leave your petty human prejudices and hatreds outside these walls." With that warning echoing in my consciousness, he walked through the grayish-black stone wall. I stood outside for a moment, feeling lost. "Look, I said I'm not going inside there," I said to the imposing stone. "Leave your petty human hates outside, blah, blah, blah," I muttered mockingly in my best haughty angel's voice before reluctantly following in his wake. Inside, I found a place that hadn't lost any of its horror ambience since my last visit in the physical years before. A narrow hallway lay before me with crumbling walls and an arched ceiling presiding above. The hall was lined with door-shaped black holes. The place oozed with the stench of human horror, pain, and misery. "Kind of like a college dorm during finals week," I observed. "Hey, Angel, where are you?" I whispered. My communication was telepathic, but I thought I heard it echoing off the cavernous walls. "Who are you? What are you doing here? Do you have the watch commander's permission to be here?" demanded a stern voice behind me. Startled, I turned to face a middle-aged man in a prison guard's uniform. His thoughts betrayed a simple man with simple tastes, but with a streak of cruelty running throughout. Here was a man who didn't just do his job, but took great pleasure in exercising power and inflicting beatings on helpless men. However, the defect of personality had bound him to this place for decades past his mortal death. "Don't worry," I said. "I have permission to be here." I beamed calming and soothing energy to this man in uniform. "But why are you still here?" The guard looked at me, then lowered his gaze downwards. "I'm not stupid. I know I'm dead. I thought I was just doing my job, but I did things here. I beat up prisoners who didn't have it coming, and I liked it a lot. Now, I can't find my way out." For a moment, I recoiled at the violence that this man in uniform had perpetrated in this institution. However, I could also feel the deep remorse he felt now that he'd had time to reflect on his physical life in this solemn place. "You don't have to stay here any longer," I assured him. "Just ask for help to leave this place and you'll pass into a much better world." He considered my words for a bit, then announced, "Hey, an angel." He slowly faded, his last words still on his lips. Beside me, my angel had appeared from the black void. Saying nothing, he glided halfway down the cell block before stopping at an opening on the left. I followed closely behind. His back still to me, he pointed inside. "But, Your Honor, I didn't do nothing," I joked, trying to lighten the mood. Of course, I got no reaction. "Tough crowd," I said in my best Rodney Dangerfield voice. Moving around my mute and humorless friend of light, I gazed inside. At first, I wasn't sure what I was seeing. Huddled on the floor in the corner was something in the shape of a large black toad. Waves of menace, evil, and utter perversion emanated from the creature like a demon from the darkest pit. Its resume of negativity was worn like a crown. I assumed at first that it was a demon of the infernal realms, but it was so much worse than that. The thing crouching a few feet in front of me had once been a human, confined to this very cell. I won't mention his name. It's not important anyway. He wasn't any of the infamous criminals you might have heard from the History Channel. He was imprisoned for murder. It was some common type of bar fight or something happened. He stabbed someone. It's really not that important. He was in prison for this murder, yes, but his most heinous crimes were never uncovered. He had kidnapped poor street children whom no one would miss and killed them. But through nauseating waves of his personal history, I saw the things he did to those children before they received the final gift of death. I was overcome with sadness, despair, revulsion, and furious hatred for this inhuman monster. "Let him rot here," I exclaimed. "He's a disgusting piece of shit. He's not worth our time or effort." The giant toad slowly rose at my words and sprang at me, fangs bared. With a gesture of his angelic hand, a beam of light shot towards my attacker, knocking him to the floor. A piteous whimpering escaped the fallen creature, like a dog cruelly whipped by its master. With matters temporarily under control, the angel turned to me coldly. "Are you to be the judge of all humanity, then? Will you decide who is to be saved and who is to be left behind? If your arm is injured or becomes weak, would you cut it off rather than nurse it back to health?" I was chastened by my glowing companion's harsh words. No witty rejoinders came to mind to answer his devastating questions. Mankind is one body. If the whole is to be saved, all of its body and limbs must be healed. He turned from me and then addressed the figure on the floor of the dank cell. "Man, Do you wish to depart from this place of suffering? Inquired the angel. Unfurling a little from his protective ball, the criminal nodded his head perceptibly. Instantly he faded away, leaving the tiny cell vacant. I just stood there, head down, the empty cell, an accusation hanging in the air against me. A second later, we were back in my bedroom. I didn't know what to say. Of course, my angelic teacher did. Remember what you have seen here today, human. I go now, but will return anon, he announced, fading away slowly. Swell, I said. Well, that was the experience. Obviously, it was the same angel, I believe, from my Drafted by an Angel experience. This was a very profound experience for me, and I hope you can appreciate why I wanted to share it with you. Now that you have listened to this, I'll give you fair warning. Don't be surprised if perhaps one of these nights you get a little visitor too who will want to take you on a trip as well. If you want to blame me, go ahead. There's plenty of blame to go around. All I could say at this point is if you like this, go ahead and hit the like button. If this is something that you want to share with a friend of yours or a family member, go ahead and do that. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. And if you want to comment, please do so. I'd like to know what you think about this experience. What do you think it meant? What's going on? I've got some of my theories, but I'd love to hear your theories as well. Oh, and by the way, I looked up the word anon in the dictionary. I'd vaguely heard it before, but it's archaic English. It means shortly, so I guess I've got that to look forward to. Okay, everyone, I hope you had a good week. I hope you have a good week coming up. And as always, I will see you on the astral plane.